Hello, and welcome to your Pointers for Parents podcast, where we support parents with anxiety as it relates to teens transitioning out of the home after high school, whether they're heading off to the college campus, the military base, or simply residential interdependence. As you all already know, I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Lloyd, and on today's episode, we will be talking to a mother, an author, and a science teacher, Cynthia Milone. Let me tell you just a little bit about her. But welcome. Before I do that, welcome, Cindy.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let me tell y'all this. So Dr. Martin Luther King once said, life's more persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? This has been Cynthia Milone's mantra, if you will. She lives her life always with that question. And as you all see, this is what she does. She's all about helping others. She's been a science teacher for 7th and 8th graders for about 26 years because it's the ideal subject to teach, mostly because it does not provide or claim to have answers. In fact, through discovery learning, one is left with even more questions. Imagine that. So through science, she engages and motivates her young students to ask questions, make mistakes, and discover phenomena through their struggles. Her life has been a gift up until this point, and she has been blessed beyond her wildest imagination, including a tragic event that involved her son, Sam, who attempted suicide due to being a victim of cyberbullying. And so we'll get into that, and we'll talk about that in depth. As a parent, all she wants to do was to take her pain away. All she wanted to do was to take his pain away and fix it. But Sam knew that only he could fix it. And he is doing just that as we speak. So being alongside Sam throughout his journey of becoming a victor, Cindy discovered what she was meant to do, and that's to search for a solution to the bullying epidemic, if you will. So 5 years ago, she started an Eagles Rise Up blog at her school and shared her son's story of hope. The goal of the blog is to provide a safe place for all students to discuss bullying situations and spread kindness. This blog was so successful that her students they became kinder to each other. They begin to speak up with greater fluency, and they're more self-aware of how their actions impact others, which we all know is important. So to sustain the mission, the Eagles Rise Up students leaders embarked on a challenge to defeat bullying. From this challenge, a book was born with every chapter penned by a student author, and she will give more information about that. I'm so excited that Cindy's here with us. So Cindy, welcome again. We're so glad you're here.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this because I really do feel that probably the hardest job that we all have is being a parent, and really knowing what exactly is the right thing to do, because all of us as parents, we want to do the right thing for our kids. And it's a difficult and it's a fine line to figure it out, because if only our kids came with a manual, because I have 3 boys and all 3 of them are completely different from one another. And what one needs, the other one doesn't. So it's really difficult to manage all those different personalities, for sure.
I totally agree. So tell me this. What do you think when we think about as a parent and our teens? What do you think, just starting off, would be like the greatest gift that a parent could give their teen and our children?
That's a question that I always pondered, when I first started with my first child. And, you would like to say that it's love, giving them love, but throughout their journey, it is to instill a sense of pride in them. And one of the reasons why that is so important is because they need to learn to love themselves. Because once they do love themselves, then they can go and chase after their dreams. They know what is good for them and what, the choices that they make, they realize that it's going to shape their future. So once you give them a sense of pride, then everything else falls into place for them.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. It's just being clear about how they feel about themselves. And then that just kind of resonates outward. Awesome. Awesome. So listen, let's just tell me about this book. This book is so exciting, and just how you and others wrote it, and just in an effort to help others.
Yeah. So it all stems, I was going around to different schools and talking about the bullying epidemic. And one of them, as you said before, was due to a tragedy in my own home. My middle son, Sam, he was cyberbullied. Honestly, it was not the first post that was on Instagram. It was the 46 comments that were made afterwards, and several of the comments were made by his so-called friends at the time. This is when he was a senior in high school. I did not know anything about it because I didn't think to look at his phone to figure out what he was seeing on a day-to-day basis. I saw some signs of not wanting to go to school. His grades were dropping, but not to the point where it was like going from like an A to an F. It was just like an A to a B. But there were some signs, but I was not, I think, sometimes life gets so busy that we just don't, maybe I didn't want to look at them at the time. I'm not too sure. But one day, he said he was not feeling well and he didn't end up going to school, and he was home by himself, and he took an old car of my husband's, parked it went into the garage and turned on the car. And for about 15 minutes, after 15 minutes, the car stopped on its own. My husband found him on the ground, and we rushed him to the hospital. Physically, he was not hurt physically. His lungs capacity was fine, but psychologically and emotionally, he knew it was time for him to get some help. And after I found out what exactly led to all of this, I was devastated. The only thing I could tell other parents is pay attention to what these kids are watching on their phones, all these different social platforms or whatever. There's so much negativity that goes on. And a lot of these kids who are trying to find themselves feel that that's a way of getting validation, and trying to figure out their identity. It makes it difficult. But my son ended up getting the help that he needs, and he is quite the inspiration. He does not go around with me. A lot of people ask, can he come with you to speak or whatever and tell his side of the story? And he doesn't, but right now he's in the Air Force. He is just a wonderful, wonderful kid. And we've always raised him to be kind, but he's just something special. And I think, he has found his purpose and why he's still here. So, and that is how, after I went around to the different schools and told the story.
You're listening to Your Pointers for Parents podcast, where we support parents with anxiety as it relates to teens transitioning out of the home after high school. To get additional tips tossed and or gems dropped, subscribe to our weekly emails by clicking on the link below. Now back to Your Pointers for Parents podcast.
And, basically reminding kids that it's cool to be kind. It's not cool to bully each other. Stand up for each other. Be an upstander. Be Be a protector for someone who is being bullied. If you see someone that's sitting by themselves, go sit with them. You might find something that you have totally in common with these people. And so that's how the book came about. My student leaders were so touched by his story that we all decided to write a book. And, at first it became a joke. We were in a meeting and we were having pizza, and I was telling the kids, I'm like, well, you know what? You guys do know that I'm just the science teacher. I'm not a writer. And they're like, oh, you always told us that you're more than that. So she goes, that's how the book was born. And I started with my story, and we just took all the different angles of the bullying scenarios. So I wrote a story about I'm a bully. Every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I criticized myself. I wish I had longer hair. I wish, that I didn't have freckles. All those things that we tell ourselves that we don't like about ourselves instead of saying the opposite. So, and that's how the book was born.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And Sam may have to do maybe a 10 or 15 minute video clip or something. And that way you can take it around with you and you don't even have to answer any questions.
Yes, exactly.
So awesome. So let me ask you this, Cindy. Do you think, as we're talking about bullying and just the different angles of bullying, do you think that bullying happens on the college campus? And if so, between which relationships and in what aspects do you think?
I think it is very frequent in college campuses. It's all different relationships. You will even see it between a teacher and a student, a bullying situation. Like I know many instances where teachers have a certain philosophy and students do not have that philosophy, but they feel that they have to change their perspective in life to meet the expectation of the teacher. You see it all the time where kids, they almost like shrink themselves to fit in because they feel that they're not good enough to be within this sorority or this fraternity. And instead of like understanding that if they just had the right mindset, I don't need your opinion of me. I can be above that. I'm not defined by the way you see me. And they really just see the beauty within themselves. They could do so much better in a college atmosphere. I do know that one of the things that all my kids have done is they always wake up with the right kind of mindset. They find a motivational quote, or they find something that resonates with them. So they can go throughout their day and just have, the attitude of gratitude, being grateful for what they have instead of always comparing themselves to what other people have. And I think that's really important, but you see it like, I see it like, with girlfriends, the boyfriend kind of relationship. And it all stems from just not loving yourself. And we're still trying to find who that self is, but you're just, you're searching for ways to be validated by other people. And then that gives you target, as you can say, that target on your back of, like I'm weaker. If they just came and confronted it, they would be so much better. And one of the things that, I realized, when Sam was going through his journey was, you can't confront bullying or hate, because bullying is a form of hate. You can't, confront it with hate yourself. You got to confront it with kindness, with love and kindness. Because when you do, the bullying stops. That was one of the things, like, I realized even till this day that a lot of times, like, students will like report being bullied or whatever, and then they're talked to, and then the perpetrator is also talked to, but then nothing happens. And then the bully just finds another target instead of like teaching both kids how to confront the issue and being, instead of becoming, like a bystander, becoming the upstander. So I think that's one of the major things, like, I wish in college campuses, they would teach kids how to communicate. And I think a big problem with kids in college, especially at their age, is they don't have those communication skills to do so. And so they do need, there is a moment where they need to be taught how to confront these situations.
That's so powerful. You're mentioning that because with them being away from home for 4 years and looking at the relationships you just mentioned, whether it's faculty student, whether it's in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, it could simply be peer relationships. There's all types of opportunities, if you will, for bullying to take place, and that communication is key. Being able to confront it, as you just mentioned. So tell me this, then how can teens just consciously and competently and with confidence better manage those relationships so that bullying is non-existent?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I know that all my sons have done was, like I told you, is they wake up with that motivational quote. One of the aspects that I've always taught my kids is kindness is always the right answer. There's always an opportunity to do so. Do you know that if someone is like making fun of you or making you feel like low on the totem pole, you look at their character. Don't worry about your reputation, because honestly, everyone around, when they do something like that, they're not looking at you. They're looking at that person who just said it, because they realize if they're saying that about you, they're going to be they're saying it to everybody. And I think one of the things that we've all noticed, especially my kids, they were saying that usually they're the most insecure individuals, because they feel that in order to lift themselves up is to put someone else down. And when my kids or when other kids do the opposite, and guess what? They end up having more like truer friends. And I think that's a big lesson that you learn in college, is you find out who are the true friends. And instead of wanting just to hang out with the in crowd or whatever the case is.
And Cindy, do you think, and just what hit my spirit moments ago, do you think that, it's just important for students also to trust their own intuition? Like
yes.
Like when we're interacting with someone, like we know what our thoughts are and we feel a certain kind of way. And to trust that, what are your thoughts?
Oh, there's so many times that whether my kids have been in certain situations or whatever, and one of the biggest statements my husband always would say, if it doesn't feel right, chances are it's not right anymore. And he goes, you got to trust that instinct. Like if something's not right and you're feeling kind of like not good about the situation, it's time to get yourself out of that situation quickly, and it is so important, when you're communicating with someone. Like if you don't have something nice to say, silence is probably your best option. And, like a lot of people feel that standing up for yourself means to be mean. And it doesn't mean that at all. It means to respond, always being humble and kind about it. Like one of the things, that my son kind of did, like if someone was making fun of like what he was wearing, he's like, oh man, I picked this out or something. I guess you're right. I should have picked something else out. And he made a joke about it. And then the person didn't even know what else to say. Like when you respond like, oh gosh, you're right. I wish I picked out something different, but oh, well, and you act like it didn't really bother you. They don't have a place to go further than that. But if you react and you get really upset about that comment or whatever, and you say that had offended me, they continue.
And they capitalize off of that situation as opposed to your brushing it off, and then it minimizes it and just gives less credence to it.
Yeah. I mean, he even went so far, he would say, but like, gosh, I was actually looking at your shirt, and your shirt looks amazing on you. I wish I had that shirt or whatever. And then all of a sudden they just stopped. And I just realized, I'm like, that's genius.
How can you return a mean comment after a compliment? That's pretty tough to do. That's pretty, you have to just be ill-willed in order to come back after a compliment. So resources or programs or anything like that are offered by schools, are you aware of any that would develop like the needed personality traits?
My second book that does talk about, that positive mindset. And so each day, you can look at the different quotes, and that book was made with another teacher. She's actually a kindergartner teacher, and she lives up in Canada. So a totally different perspective, from here in the United States or whatever, but same things go on there as well. She's more of a poet. I'm not. But, I have like each day, and I'm also on Twitter. And each day I do like a Monday mindset, a Tuesday tip, Wednesday wisdom. And I just, at night I come up and certain things that happen during the day or whatever, things that I've observed, things that were tough for me, I put them in a short quote, attach it to like a famous quote, like with Martin Luther King, and it just resonates with people. And I think it's important. You have to start within. You have to find all the things that you love about yourself, not what you can become, but what you have now and what you can improve on. And I just think that's probably the greatest gift that you can give to your child is to help them and encourage them to find that special gift inside them.
That is so good. That is so good. My goodness, you just tossed all types of tips throughout this talk. This has been phenomenal. Anything else that, maybe you'd like to share with our listeners? Any other wise tips or any suggestions or anything along those lines? If not, we understand because you've shared so many, but if there are any additional ones, that'd be great.
Probably the one that always resonated with me is that you're doing okay. That you're going to make mistakes. Your children are going to make lots of mistakes. But you know what? Life is an adventure. Life is going to throw you so many curveballs, but enjoy those beautiful moments that you have because, there's few of them, and cherish them.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. So I have just been jotting down some takeaways myself. Instill pride in your teens, and it's cool to be kind, and that communication that's so critical on the college campus and is helpful if our teens know how to do that more and more effectively. That's phenomenal. So listen, you mentioned, Cindy, that you were on Twitter. And so your handles, please, either that or Instagram or wherever you are, just in case there are additional questions after we conclude.
Sure. It is I don't even know what you call it. My Twitter feed is called Dolphins Enlighten. Dolphins Enlighten, and it is at MSS Bullying Blog.
Okay.
Yes. I follow a group called the Starfish Club, and sure, the starfish story. That's the little boy that throws the starfish back in the ocean, and a man stops him and says, "You're not going to make a difference. There's so many here." He goes, "Well," he throws another one in and he goes, "Well, it made a difference to that one." So it's all about kindness. And if you raise your kids to be kind, you're going to do just fine.
I totally agree. Thank you so very much. Remember to follow us, listeners. Remember to follow us on Instagram if you'd like to re-listen to this podcast at Pointers for Parents. That way you're able to capture all of what Cindy has just mentioned. Also, if you want to ask a question on any future episodes on as far as podcasting questions and answers or anything along those lines, then click the link that's down in our caption in our snow notes. Also, you want to be available for our next episode where you will hear a testimonial. And then I want to thank Cindy again. Thank you so much for being here. These were all types of tips I know that our listeners gleaned from it. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Pointers for Parents podcast.